Hey, friends. Happy Holy Week to you. No, I'm not broadcasting from somewhere in the tropics, despite what the palm trees behind me might suggest. I'm here in the rectory, and these I picked up along with some other flowers and plants for Easter. So they're just in their temporary home here. I want to speak with you today about a couple of changes, a few changes, adaptations. The first has to do with seating in the church. So, as you likely know, churches have been asked to go above and beyond what most other places are doing, from the order to sanitize the indoor hardware on the doors at church before people leave, to the kind of the rigid sanitizing and social distancing that we've been asked to keep. Now, some of these things have loosened up. Some places, as you've experienced, have never had quite as high a regulation or restrictions as what churches have experienced. So we're going to adapt a little bit. One of the things that we are adjusting is our disinfecting. Um, the most current research shows the virus does not primarily transmit through surface contact. The Archdiocese has just come out with a note saying that we could discontinue disinfecting after Mass, and largely we will do this. We'll still keep up with a few things for a little while with some of the hardware and such, but by and large, since the data suggests it and the diocese permits it, we will ease out of disinfecting after Mass, after activities in the church. Secondly, we're going to adjust our seating. At least we're going to try this for Holy Thursday. You've noticed, surely, if you've been back to the church, that every other pew has been roped off. This is to help us keep that social distancing and help the ushers out a little bit. Well, people know instinctively now to keep some distance. And we've decided, again, at least for Holy Thursday, to try this, and maybe going forward, to open up all the pews and to ask people just to keep distance. So never sit directly behind someone or directly in front of someone, but kind of stagger throughout, keeping distance, but knowing that most places that you enter don't demand a rigid 6-foot spacing. I've been going to the gym since probably June of last year, and well, there have been no masks, basically no masks there worn by anyone, and the distancing has been really hit or miss. Maybe you've noticed that elsewhere. Well, we're going to continue to require masks. That order is still in effect. But by opening up the pews, we can legitimately fit in a few more people, and we hope to take some of the demands off our ushers, which brings me to another point. We are depending upon the same volunteers over and over and over. Please let this prompt you or prick at your heart to volunteer. Don't let everybody else or some people do the work that you could do. So the first item will be opening up these pews just a little bit. Here's what that should look like. To illustrate that point about seating yourselves while keeping socially distanced and having the pews open, I've got 4 masked helpers here. First, Marcy and Xavier are going to show us how to seat yourself appropriately behind someone who is already seated in the church. Good genuflections. Very good. That's probably a 9 out of 10. Good. All right, so they're not seated directly behind. There's space in between. All right, now let's take a look at how that might be inappropriate for social distancing. You could just scoot on over if you wanted to. You don't have to go through the whole rigmarole. Yeah, no, that used to be totally acceptable, and hopefully one day it will be again. But right now, Blake and Kelly here in the front might be a little nervous, given that we've grown accustomed to a lot of space in between us. All right, and now Marcy and Xavier are going to show us how to appropriately seat yourself in front of someone who is already seated. Good. All right, so it forms a little bit of a zigzag pattern. Allows us to seat just a few more people, keeping distance. And then inappropriate for social distancing, just right in front. And they'll get the evil eye from the ones who are behind them. Okay, good. Now, let's have you space out, Blake and Kelly. Good. And so if you've got groups, let's say Kelly's got her group and Blake has his, then you could be seated in between them and keep your distancing. Now, remember, if you're of the same family, you can all sit together. And I believe the case is that if you're vaccinated, you can sit next to somebody who is vaccinated. I don't believe you have to be from the same family. Okay, so just please keep this in mind as you seat yourself as we go forward. Thank you. Very good. Okay, the second thing I wanted to talk with you about, second primary point, I'll throw in a few others here or there, is how we're receiving Holy Communion. You know, when the church first reopened, the information that we were given suggested to come forward with your mask on, extend your hand, receive Holy Communion, step to the side, pull your mask down, and then consume. But what we're finding for one reason or another is that that's too much. And there are just way too many hosts that are falling onto the ground. And so, even though it's hard to teach old dogs new tricks, we get into habits very easily, what I want to ask you to do is when the person in front of you is receiving Holy Communion, pull your mask down, step forward, receive Holy Communion, step to the side, consume, and then put your mask back up. And here's a little glimpse of what this should look like. Okay, to help us demonstrate point number 2, we have our 3rd and 4th grade here and our 3rd and 4th grade teacher, Miss Blofis, to demonstrate how we want to adjust how we receive communion there. Good. So you notice they're pulling their mask down before they get to the minister. That way we don't fumble with the mask and the host and fumble the host away. Good. Look how well they've been taught. So we're using basically that last sticker, pretty close, to pull our mask down. Oh, but if we forget, we can do it last second. There we go. Good bow. So get to the sticker, pull your mask down, and come forward. So basically, when you get there, there's going to be one person in front of you, and when they're out of the way, you can step forward. Great. Good. Thanks, kids. Thanks, Ms. Blofis, for your help. I hope you can make that adjustment. I'm going to ask our extraordinary ministers to encourage you to do that. Take down your mask if you forget. We just we could be with masks for a long time yet, and it's just something we need to do out of respect for the Holy Eucharist, in addition to precautions for having to reach down and touch a host and give it back to someone and then have to go and disinfect your hands and such. So I think practically speaking, it'll be better for us too. Now the last thing I want to visit with you about is a more significant adjustment. We started to stream the 8 o'clock Mass on YouTube when we had some network problems. But those network problems haven't been rectified, so we've continued to do that. What I would like to do is get away from streaming the 8 o'clock Mass and using the parish hall at 8 o'clock. This is principally because we've had staff who for almost a year now have been working weekends, doing extra things to make all this happen. And it's really time for them to return to a normal schedule. I'm sure you can understand. So what I'd like to propose, beginning the weekend after Easter, is that I would offer on Saturday afternoons at 4 o'clock we'll call it a low Mass, where there'll be no music. It'll be very similar to a daily Mass, but just with the Sunday components of the Gloria when it's called for, second reading when it's called for, the Creed, etc. Those things that we do at all the other Sunday Masses except for music. So it would be a shorter Mass at 4 o'clock on Saturdays. Now I would do this so that we can get away from needing to use the parish hall at 8 o'clock. So I'm asking those people and others to give some consideration to coming to that 4 o'clock Mass. This Mass would be provisional, until the church is permitted to open up and have attendance like we used to. We need to take a little pressure off our staff and off the capacity limits in those other Masses with this fourth Mass. So I'd like to begin that again this Sunday after Easter, provisional. Now, I did give some consideration to doing a noon Mass, but if I do a noon Mass, what that could mean if it's long-term is that, again, your priest would never be at any functions on Sunday, night's breakfast, receptions for the graduates. I couldn't go to religious ed. And I feel like that's an impoverishment of what a parish should be, how your pastor should be involved, participate in those things. I think at least most priests are expecting that we're not going to have the full crew return to Mass as soon as all the pews are opened. So we may not need a fourth Mass. What we need is to have all the pews open. We don't have that yet, and so a 4 p.m. Mass may be a way that we can get by for a little while. I'll do confessions at 3 p.m., so before that Mass, and then continue with the 5:30 Saturday Mass as normal. We, like everybody, are just kind of making this up as we go along, trying to figure out how to do this and make things work. I appreciate your understanding, your patience. If you have any other thoughts, please communicate them to me. I'd be glad to hear them and adjust as we need to. Come to the Holy Week services. Good Friday, we've got 2 now, 3 o'clock and 7 o'clock. So if you're retired or if your work schedule permits it, please come to the 3 p.m. It's been a year. It's been 2 years since we've had Easter together, since we've had the Triduum together. I hope you'll participate, and I look forward to seeing you there. Bless you.